Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second Applanga webinar. I'm very excited to kick off our localization at the design stage webinar. My name is Aisha Amin, and I am the Customer Success Manager for Applanga. My job is to help our customers use the platform effectively and efficiently. I also help users learn the ins and outs of Applanga, as well as assist with any issues that may come up while localizing their projects. If you ever have any questions, run into any problems, or anything at all, really, I'm here to help. Joining me today behind the scenes is Christian Stanka, CEO and co-founder of Applanga. He's the man behind the curtains today to help us with a smooth webinar and with any questions that you may have.
Yes, hello, welcome everyone. I will be in the chat.
All right, so with introductions out of the way, let's go over our agenda. So today we'll be talking about localization at the design stage. We'll talk about the benefits of starting localization during the design stage. We'll talk about the different design tool plugins that Applanga offers. We'll cover some of the tips for localizing with these plugins. And finally, we'll cover the process, how to use one of these plugins to kick off localization during the design stage. For that, we'll actually be using the Applanga plugin for Adobe XD, which is our newest Applanga plugin for design tools. Now we have a lot of content to cover today, so as we progress through the webinar, please add your questions to the chat. Christian will be collecting and monitoring for questions as we go along, and we've reserved about the last 10 minutes or so for questions. If you miss anything at all due to an urgent email or call, absolutely no worries. We're recording this session today, and I will send out a recording link as well as links to relevant documentation after today's session. Okay, so let's talk about why teams could benefit from starting localization at the design stage. From what we typically see at Applanga, localization process kicks off after an app has been built or towards the latter stages of a build. It's usually seen as more of a post-release step or one of the last couple of milestones before releasing an app. Typically, teams will release an app in the base language and then later start adding additional supported languages. This more traditional type of process delays an app or product release into other locales. So instead of starting towards the end of the process, our design tool plugins allow our users to start localization from the get-go. By starting at the design stage, you're getting a head start on the actual localization process. The app or product text already exists in these design files. We just take advantage of that already existing text and speed up your releases to other countries. Here we're localizing pre-release instead of post. Since you're starting the localization process early, Applanga users and their teams can begin translating content while development teams actually build the app. In this case, design, development, and translation teams are working in tandem. While developers build, translators and designers can continue to work on localization starting at the design stage. In this case, you'll actually extract text from the design file and translate that already existing content. Excuse me. Now, since these teams are working in tandem and time is of the essence, you can also start identifying UI and functional issues much more quickly. With these design tool plugins, Applanga teams can download and apply translations back into their design files. With translations added back to the design, users then generate translated screenshots to upload back to the Applanga dashboard. Translators and reviewers alike can quickly find both translation and functional errors with these translated screens. Maybe a string in Russian or German is too long for a specific button or other element on the screen. Since the issue was identified early on, this gives the team the option to shorten the translation or extend the size of the element itself. The early identification of some of these issues gives your teams more time and flexibility to resolve them. Once issues are resolved and the development team is ready for translated content, it's an easy step to migrate these translations into the newly built app or product. Teams can manually export translations. They can use a translation memory to apply translations to another project, or they can configure an additional integration with the current project. Overall, starting localization at the design stage saves time, can prevent delays in a release or deployment, and expands a product's reach much more quickly. Developers and translators have more time to update translations or aspects of the app to better suit the needs of each locale. Here at Applanga, we really want to help you manage your translations in ways that benefit the whole team. So, excuse me, now that we've covered the benefits of localization at the design stage, let's talk about the actual Applanga design tool plugins. Applanga currently has plugins for Adobe XD, Figma, and Sketch. Each design tool plugin gives users the ability to upload base language screens and its corresponding text to the Applanga project. You can also download translations from the Applanga dashboard to the design file. You can then generate translated screens for upload back into the dashboard, and you can always merge these strings with apps on Applanga. These uploaded screens can be used to provide that much needed context that we talked about earlier. This process allows you and your teams to get more accurate translations and quickly identify some of those translation or functional errors. Again, here we're trying to help you quickly and efficiently translate your app or product for a wider, much more global audience. So with all of that being said, both the Applanga plugins for Adobe XD and Figma give users a little more functionality. Both plugins allow users to customize their string IDs when initially uploading content to the dashboard. This feature is particularly helpful for teams working closely with development. This allows you to overwrite the string IDs generated by Figma or Adobe XD and instead create string IDs that the development team can later use. If you're using Sketch, you don't work closely with a development team, or those string IDs aren't even ready yet, it's no worries. Plugin users can still utilize the Applanga translation memory to apply translations between a design tool integrated project and a separate project integrated with an app. Since we're using the plugin for Adobe XD today, I can show you how to update string IDs during the initial upload. Our documentation on the translation memory is also quite extensive and can be found on our website. We also have quite a few upcoming blog posts in the pipeline to help guide you through some of the more complicated steps. So before we go over how to use the design tool plugins, I want to cover a couple of helpful tips to make sure your localization at the design stage runs as smoothly as possible. The first and most important is to always create copies of your design files. When you download translations back to your files, the download will overwrite the original base language text. I highly recommend that you use a copy to download translations to prevent losing your original text. All that being said, the base language text does still exist in the dashboard. However, it can be a bit of a pain to more or less reset that file so it reflects its original state. That's why I recommend working with copies for this one. For the next one, as I mentioned earlier, the plugins for Adobe XD and Figma allow users to overwrite those design tool generated string IDs. I'm sure if you use those design tools, you've seen where it, is like tab dot selected dot, and it just keeps going. Um, Sometimes those can be a little annoying, so you do have the option to overwrite them for Adobe XD and Figma. But if you used a previous version of the Figma plugin, you use the Sketch plugin, or the development team doesn't have the string IDs ready yet, no problem. You can use a translation memory on Applanga. The key here is only accepted and approved translations for a project can be added to the translation memory. Using the TM for localization at the design stage does require two projects, one for the design tool integrated project and one for the app integrated project. Both of these projects must be under the same team on Applanga, as the translation memory does exist at the team level. My last tip is to be a little patient with the plugin upload and download process. Extremely large design files with a lot of text can take a while to both upload and download. It may also take a second for you to see uploaded content on the dashboard or see newly added languages in the plugin. When in doubt, just give it a few minutes and refresh the page or the plugin. Okay, so now we've reached the best part. Let me show you how to kick off localization at the design stage using the Applanga plugin for Adobe XD. Let's leave our slideshow. Let's see. So I actually already downloaded the Applanga plugin for Adobe XD. This is something that you can easily download by going to our website under integration documentation, or you can also search for Applanga in the Adobe XD plugin menu. Generally, these are the same steps you would use to integrate a Figma or Sketch design file with an Applanga project. So let me get started by creating a new project. If you already have an existing project you want to integrate with your design file, I'll also show you how to connect that as well. So I'll need to give my project a name. We will use, right? I'll double check my base language and I'll double check my team. Excuse me. And then I'll click create. On the integration dialog page, I'll select Adobe XD. However, you can easily see that both Sketch and Figma are options here as well. Now I'll hop back over to Adobe XD. Now that I have my integration option selected, you can see some of the basics on installation. Here is a link to directly download the plugin. Next, I have the option to add authorized API IP addresses for API upload. You can also see we have our API access token down here. I'm going to go ahead and copy it to my clipboard. And then I will click go to project. Now, for those of you who already created a project to integrate with the design tool plugin, you'll still need to get your API token. To do that, you'll actually go to your project settings. I'll give it a second to load. And then we'll need to scroll down to our API section, which is down towards the bottom here. Here I can add in those IP addresses, and I can also grab my API token. I'll click here, I'll copy it again, and then I'll click OK. Now, if you do add in those IP addresses, you will need to click Update to make sure those changes are saved. All right, so now that we know how to get our API key, let's switch to Adobe XD to configure our connection. Pull up Adobe real quick. Okay. So from Adobe XD, I already have the file I'm going to integrate with, and now I just need to open my plugin menu, which will be up top here. We'll grab plugins, and you see I've already added the Applanga plugin for Adobe XD. However, if I hadn't yet added it yet, I could also go to Browse Plugins and then search for Applanga. Alrighty, so now I'll go ahead and open our plugin. I'm sure you'll notice that our upload and download options are grayed out. That's okay. We need to configure the integration with our project first by going to the connection settings. Remember the API token I copied? Well, I pasted it here, and then I'll click Save Settings. And now we're all connected. From here, I'm actually going to go to Upload. This option allows us to kick off our initial upload of content to Applanga, including both text and screens. Before we kick off our upload, let's double check a couple of things. We see our project name that I just created. We see the right source language. And if we come down a little bit, we see some upload options. I'll click to expand these so we can cover some of them. There we go. So let's go over what these can do for your uploaded content. First, we have the ability to include or exclude text. Excuse me. I will definitely keep that since it's our initial upload. Next, we have the option to include locked content. This option determines if locked content is included for translation scope. Locked content is typically marked by that padlock icon. This option is disabled by default. Next, we have the option to include hidden content. This option determines if hidden content is included in the translation scope. I do believe hidden content is marked by the open or closed eye icon. Keep in mind that there may be some invisible elements that will be included in scope because they're invisible for reasons other than the visible property status. This one is also disabled by default. Now we're moving to more of the default options for uploaded text. First, we have the option to upload new/missing text. With this option enabled, any text present in the file and not yet on Applanga is uploaded. This option is what allows you to add new or more recently added content to Applanga after your initial upload. This option is also enabled by default. Next, we have the option to merge new duplicated text into a single Applanga string. When this option is enabled during upload, for every text that is not on Applanga yet, all duplicates found in the file for that specific text are more or less merged into a single new Applanga ID. This helps prevent your project from being flooded with dozens of strings with the word OK or log in or log out. Think repetitive text for this one. If this option is disabled, one string ID is created for each of the duplicate text elements. Again, this option is enabled by default. Next, we have Merge Adobe XD Text with existing Applanga strings. When this option is enabled during upload, if a string with the exact same text already exists in Applanga, the existing string ID is applied to the Adobe XD file instead of generating a new one. If multiple strings like this exist, then a string ID is chosen randomly. Again, this one is enabled by default and prevents multiple duplicate strings from being added to the dashboard. Last but not least, we have update existing Applanga strings with changes made in Adobe XD file. When this option is selected, the corresponding strings on Applanga will be overwritten with the content from the Adobe XD file. This one is also a default. This is one of those options that allows you to make changes to strings even after the initial upload. So now we're moving to our screenshot options. Users have the option to include or exclude screens for upload. Excuse me, I lost my place. If you need to upload text from your Adobe XD file only, then you could exclude the screenshots here. Our final upload option is to include screenshots without linked text. So if this option is selected, screenshots that couldn't be linked to any text are uploaded to the Applanga project. This option is disabled by default. So now that we've gone through the more basic options, we'll have one more big one once we click upload. On this page, we have the ability to select specific strings for upload to the dashboard. We also have the ability to rename the string IDs. Let me show you how both of these would work. So if you look at the top here, you see that we have all selected. You do have the option to only select approved. Let me show you how you would approve those. So with only approved, you would go in and mark these check boxes, and the change of the color to green will let you know that these are approved. Now this is also where you could rename some of these. So in this case, let's just say select. We can rename a couple of these if we wanted. And whatever would work best for you. Obviously, I'm putting in some short ones, and sometimes your development teams might provide string IDs that are a little bit longer, but those you could just copy and paste in here. So I know that was a lot of options, but we want you to have more control over what you can accomplish between your design tools and your Applanga projects. So with that, I'm going to kick off my initial upload. Since it's my initial upload, I'm actually going to turn off only approved and go back to all. And now I'll click upload. We'll give it a couple seconds and we can monitor the activity log to see how the upload is progressing. In this case, we see the upload is already complete, but that's because I really only have 2 pages in my project. Alrighty, so now let's switch back to the dashboard and check on our project. I'll refresh the page. And now you saw originally we had zeros in all of here, but now we have 33. And if we pop in here, we can see all of our strings made it here. And we can see that our screens made it here as well. Right. If I were using Transperfect translation services, then I would click the Order Now button. Oh wait, I would need to add languages first. So in this case, I'm just going to add German and Spanish. And now that I have these in here, then I would click my Order Now button. And that would allow me to go ahead and place my order for translations for these newly added languages. Now, if I were using external translation services, not via Transperfect, I could then open up my project and assign statuses or tags to strings, whatever is needed to kick off the translation workflow for your external teams. So now that I have uploaded content, we could kick off translations. Once I have translations ready, I can generate translated screens to help aid the review process. Obviously, it takes quite a time to get some of these translations back, but I actually have a second project just for this. So I'm cheating here a little, and I'm just going to use my second project so we don't have to wait on the translations as well as the upload and download. Here I already have some translations ready. I've got some draft and target strings. So I'll switch back to Adobe XD and show you how to download translations back to your files. Now this is connected to a separate project in Adobe XD, so I'll be working with a copy and I won't be interfering with my original project. All right, so I'll close this, open my other project. Can I open this up a little bit more? Oh, let me double check my connection settings. Okay, so we're connected to my other project. So I'll go back here and then I will come back to download. Alrighty, so here we have a couple of options. I'll confirm that the project name is correct, just because I'm paranoid, and then I can select my language for download. I had added both German and Spanish, but let's do German for this round. Now, if you recently added translations or anything to your project, you could always click refresh. But in this case, since I had done this earlier, it's already here. Again, when in doubt, click refresh and wait a couple minutes, or wait a couple minutes and then click refresh. Alrighty, so let's go through some of our download options. We have the option to download only Target or the option to download Target and drafts. In my project, I had both Target and drafts, so I'm going to select this option. Then we have the ability to overwrite locked or hidden content. This basically just means that that content is included in the scope of the download. Lastly, we have merge Adobe XD text with existing Applanga strings. This allows linking of strings missing Applanga IDs to an existing string ID in the connected Applanga project. All right, so with the right option selected, from here I'll click download because I know that I have a copy of the English source file already. And again, sometimes it can take a second, but I really only have the 2 pages. And now we can see we've got we've got our German in here now. Alrighty, so just like that, we have our translated screens. We can see that we might have some errors that might need fixing, but I'll ignore those for now and leave it to the professionals. So now that we have translated screens, what we'll do is we'll upload these translated screens back to the dashboard so reviewers have the ability to suggest alternate, shorter translations, or whatever works best for your team and your app. For this, I'm going to go back to my plugin menu, and then I'll click Upload. From here, we need to make sure we grab the right language. It would be awful to add those German screens back to the English one. So I'll grab German from my dropdown. Again, if it seems like anything's missing, you can always wait a few minutes and click refresh. All right, so now I will click upload and we'll give it a couple of seconds. You can always monitor what's happening in the activity log down at the bottom. And we see that our upload is completed. So let's go ahead and check our project for those newly translated screens. Back to my project. We'll come down to German. And we see just like that, we have our uploaded translated screenshots, and we can easily switch between the two using our dropdown. I had also added Spanish screenshots earlier, so you can also see those as well. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes the upload can take a second to reflect on the dashboard. So when in doubt, just give it a couple minutes and hit refresh. All right. So that covers the very basics of localization at the design stage. process. With that being said, I just want to show you a couple of last options that the plugin offers. So let me close out of this, come back to my Adobe XD file. Let's go back to the original plugin, and this will bring us to our check and align file options. So here we have two major options. The first is link text with IDs. What this does is it tries to match the text in the file with existing Applanga IDs. It's similar to merge Adobe XD text with existing Applanga strings in the download options, but this isn't limited to individual selections. It'll be your whole file. This is a bit of a fuzzy match, so it may not grab everything. And last but not least, we have our second option to remove all linking. So what this option does is it clears your design file of any information that links particular text instances with Applanga IDs. It's really useful if you want to completely start over and upload content into a brand new Applanga project. Please keep in mind that this is essentially a new clear option and should be used with extreme caution. Like I said, it will remove all the linking of the text instances with your Applanga IDs. All right, and with that, that is the Applanga plugin for Adobe XD. These overall steps are much the same as when you're using the Figma plugin. While Sketch does have upload and download options, it does not have some of the more advanced options like the merging of string IDs and linking. Just something to keep in mind while you're using the Sketch design plugin. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint to cover a few more points. If I can find it. Okay. So you know how to use the plugins, but what about actually migrating the translations to an app? Once your review is complete and your translations are approved, you have a couple of options. First, you could migrate the translations by manually exporting the string files. Here at Applanga, we support a wide range of export file types to accomplish this. The development team can then use those files to add the translations to an app or product. Another option is for developers to set up an additional integration with the original design file integrated project to seamlessly pull translations into their build. The integration type is completely up to what works best for you and your teams. The second integration type, I mean. And last but not least, if you did not rename the string IDs or you're using the Sketch plugin, you can use the translation memory to apply these translations to another Applanga project. I know I mentioned this earlier, but if you do choose to go this route, the new project for the app in development will need to reside with the same team as the design tool integrated project. That's just because the translation memory exists at the team level. Okay, so today we showed you how to integrate a design file to an Applanga project using one of our design plugins, in this case, the plugin for Adobe XD. Then we went over how to upload content for translations from the design file. We covered how to download these translations and generate translated screens to aid in the review process. And last but not least, we went over how teams can migrate translations to an app. So with that, we've covered everything on our agenda for today. I know we covered a significant amount of content in this webinar, so I'll go ahead and I'll open the floor for questions. I think I may have saw a couple come in through the chat.
Yes, so we have on the public chat some, and then we have some direct messages as well. Thanks everyone for all the questions. First, I would say like the one everybody saw already, what Paul sent us, like how can I quickly eliminate the noise on a design file as you import them, or designer notes, section names, etc. And I also had the question like how to exclude content from the upload to Applanga. So if I have something that I don't want to upload. So there are a couple of options. Like for Paul's point, I would say the best option here would be to make sure to add 3 underscores to every element that should not be uploaded. So in the text element itself, so the name of the text element, not the text itself, just the element in the hierarchy of the file. If you add 3 underscores to any element, page, or what have you, this will be automatically excluded from the upload. We also have some features planned to further filter the upload in general, so that there will be more upload options and will probably also be turned on by default to exclude things like dates or pure numbers, emojicons, pure characters, like single characters or special characters. They are sometimes used, I don't know, for spacing or for descriptive purposes, and we will have filter options in the plugins for that. So that you can turn that on and off. But these would be the options. So the underscores, that's right now the best option to add 3 underscores to the element. Later on, we will also have some filters that will hopefully work. In Adobe XD, you can already do selective upload simply by kind of pulling a frame over all the elements that you want to include in the upload. So it will only upload selected, so to speak. This is also something that should be coming to Figma soon. And then hopefully also the sketch at some point where we do a complete rework of the current one. The other question I got was how can I update screenshots, or will screenshots be updated? I guess that means when something is changed in the file, if the screenshots that are uploaded to Applanga will also be updated. And for that, actually, you would have to do another upload. But as you have maybe seen in the options, you can simply uncheck the text upload if you want to be certain that you add nothing new, just update the screenshots. You can just upload screenshots again. This will update the screenshots with the latest version, which also goes to the next question: can I change my design after the upload? So Aisha said make a copy of the file, and that's absolutely true. It's mainly though for the purpose of if you download the translations into the file, be sure to have another one, kind of like a backup file. Whatever is your main project file, doesn't matter, but just to be sure that if you download another language and then somebody closes that file and then somebody changes something on the file again, so that you don't come into the situation where you don't cannot come back. But you can, of course, change your design, like continue to work on your design and continuously upload again and again from Applanga to from the design files to Applanga, and everything that was already uploaded will not be overwritten or repetitions will be added. Like everything will be basically kept at a minimum. So through the options, basically, we avoid repetitions and duplicates and all of that. Yeah, so that were the questions. I think please let me know if I forgot anything, but thanks a lot for the questions and your participation today. Yeah, we will
Okay.
leave. Yeah, we will leave it open for a couple of minutes, so feel free to ask anything, but also feel free to reach out to us individually afterwards if you want to have an additional demonstration or have any questions. Exactly.
Yeah. So, like Christian said, if you guys don't have any other questions now, but if you come up with questions later in the day, you can always contact us directly, support@applanga.com, or use the website support chat. Christian and I are also regularly updating documentation at applanga.com/docs, and we have a couple of blog posts planned around localization at the design stage over the next couple of weeks. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone for their time today on our second webinar. This is something we hope to continue to regularly produce for our users, so be on the lookout for another invite in the next few weeks. I know I mentioned earlier that we will be sending out a recording. It does take some time for the recording to render, but a little later today you can expect to receive a follow-up email from me with a link to the webinar, and I'll also include links to some of that more relevant documentation. We have a whole page dedicated to localization at the design stage. And with that, thank you so much for your time today.